So we'll give a second for Helen to come in and then we'll kind of do a little meditation quickly and then we'll kind of do a check-in and then I'll do my presentation because I'm excited to share my time in Crestone, Colorado with you guys. And then we'll do, I think, breakouts today. Um, yeah, I think that's the plan. Or we could also do, I think we did breakouts last time. We could do a group healing, but maybe just having some good practice time would be good. Either way, if you have an opinion, you can let me know when we do a check-in. See if Helen can make it here.
I see.
Hmm. Oh, well. Well, let's just kind of close our eyes and invite Reiki. I'll keep one eye open for Helen. And just do some nice, gentle breathing. I've been really loving the idea that when we do the rhythmic, slow breathing, every time we inhale, we're inhaling in a way that draws our higher self into our embodied self, closes the gap between who we think we are and our higher wisdom, our higher self. And invite Reiki to flow and just put your hands anywhere comfortably on your body and begin to feel the flowing energy of Reiki. Just let yourself relax into Reiki. Imagine that a lot of this journey is us beginning to truly trust the invisible. And there have been very many names for this. You know, you could call it the Tao. You could call it God. You could call it Buddha, nature. You could call it Reiki. You could call it grace. You could call it life force energy. There's a invisible power that's the one true power in my way of practicing. That only the mental mind has the idea of two powers. So we're relinquishing the value that we have on the mental. Not that it can't be used for helpful things like getting from here to there, but we are allowing this life force energy, the Tao, God's grace, to live life through us and to trust that it's the one power, and that everything that comes into the one power dissolves. It doesn't have any true power. That's the idea of turning the light on in the darkness. And the light doesn't need to fix the dark. The dark really has no substance. So we're just inviting Reiki to flow, feeling our bodies and our minds relax into the peace that it brings. Feeling our connection today, our unity, our one consciousness that is this one power. Living in this happy anticipation of how this one power will take shape in our lives today, this morning, in this meeting. How will we be delighted and instructed and healed today as we join? And how will it continue and continue and continue today? And so I ask that I be a good role model and listener and learner and a hollow bone for this presence to flow through today. And I know that you all are just as important in your contributions of your presence and your sincerity and your spirit together will make this beautiful happening. And that includes all of our friends who may be watching on the recording that somehow time isn't even real. We know space isn't real. And you also are part of this, participating. So, thanking all of our higher dimensional help today, the angels and the masters, and perhaps our galactic friends who join us, opening our hearts to all of their help and playful spirit, because they are quite playful. So, thank you all for showing up, for being here today. Say amen or whatever, so be it.
Mm.
Welcome, Helen. Well, let's just do a check-in before I do my long check-in that talks about my time away. So, first, it's kind of our routine, Chris, is we just go around and anybody who wants to, well, at least say hi, but maybe Chris can just share a little bit more about how she got to Reiki and anything else about Reiki she'd like to share or her recent experiences, because I know she's had some. And then we just kind of all just share whatever comes to us, what's on our heart around our joint purpose today of Reiki and healing. So anybody can start, or if people don't chime in, then I just start going around my little grid.
I don't mind going first if that's
That's great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so Laura and I have been friends for decades now.
Yeah.
And
Since our
then
kids were yay high.
yeah, our kids were like preschool when we met. Yeah. And then she came to my house and did my Reiki training. And then I've done at least one online with you, I think maybe two. Although I don't practice Reiki at all consciously, formally. But I did just have an experience, and I was feeling very, I'm a dental hygienist, and I was just feeling very sensitive at work. Like I was absorbing everyone's energy and just really struggling with that. So I reached out to Laura and said, "Hey, can you assist me? And can we meet?" And it was about a week and a half or so until we could get together. And it just fixed itself before we even got together. So just asking for the assist uh, was all that was needed. So I really felt that that magic was all around us. And what it boiled down to was I was hanging on to some anger that I needed to let go, and they just they just took it from me. They just took it away, and
Uh,
it was lovely. Yeah.
oh, that's so great. And that really is a great sharing around the simplicity of healing, honestly. We make it way more complicated. And me being kind of somebody who's studied all the different healers, not all of them, of course, but so many different ones. And one of my favorites and who I really have learned so much from is Joel Goldsmith. And I want to share this not as something just personal about him or me, but it's about all of us. Like as you hold that consciousness and that open, choiceless awareness, that's the peace, that's not the mental, that's the one power. Um, People can touch into that, and that's the healing. And then sometimes it looks like my hands do something, or, a lot of times I'll just be sitting in the chair listening, but remembering the truth. And I feel like that's the healing. And then maybe we'll get to the table, or maybe we won't, you know, or maybe we won't even have a phone call. I have a friend that I do that with too. I reach out to her and I've mentioned her before in this group that I don't even need to get in contact. I know eventually we will, but she's a really busy person. And just me touching her consciousness with my request is my healing. I already know that. So I just write to her, and get it out, get the honesty out, and then it'll be very quick before I have my own ahas. And then when we talk, it just reinforces it, you know. And I pick her, and you have your people that you can pick, and it could be me or someone else, because I know she won't make the problem real. So no matter what it is, she will hold that truth. And I know her because we're both Course in Miracles people, and we've spent a lot of time together. So you learn in the journey what you want. Do you want to have, I call it this, the ego always does the soldier gathering, where it finds the ego wants to be right. So it finds the ones that'll say, "Oh, you poor thing, and that was terrible." But when we want to actually get free of it, that's not what we want anymore. So we might stop talking to those people, or we might not tell them our problems like we used to, because we just intuitively know, no, we don't want to be stuck in it. We don't want to be right about it. We want to be wrong about it. That's the Course in Miracles. Would you rather be right or happy? Because the ego wants to be right, but the spirit wants to be happy. And so anyway, thank you for sharing that, because it's a great, like I've been thinking that so much, how simple this is.
Yeah, it almost felt like it was a surrender and then an ask and a belief.
Yeah. That's why the Course says, to be very clear what you want, because then everything is serving what you want. So do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? And so if I want the peace of God, which is the way it says it, but honestly, the words are so just pointers. So if you don't like those words, make them the way you like them. And so it's, what does my heart want? It wants ease and peace and freedom. Freedom is a good word. I like freedom. Uh, and then everything's going to serve that. And so, yay, great way to start us out. How many years ago did we do training? Like 2 years, 3 years? Your Reiki training.
Um, that is a great question. Yeah, I would say two or three, but I'm trying to link it to something else, and I can't in this moment. But
Yeah,
yeah.
I can't quite remember either. And I think it's great that you're just coming now to the more. more of the practice of it certainly in this group, and we'll see if it trickles into your life because that's really how I was when I studied it way back when. And I feel like there's no wrong way, and it's working us and it's deepening in us and it's coming out through many ways. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the techniques we learn, you know? And I know you were also having sort of miraculous experiences at work after your
Yes,
kind of letting go and how that reflected then in all the relationships.
it really did. Yeah, yeah. My work experience just did a complete flip-flop. Yeah. And then when you shared that symbol with me, that really activated something as well.
Oh,
And yeah, yeah. I ended up painting so many rocks over the course of 2 days, and now they're strategically placed around my house and yard, and I'll just wait and see what comes of that.
just got chills. See, I don't know about that symbol either, but it showed up in my conference. It showed up on Facebook the other day in that thing I shared, and so
Hmm.
talk a little bit more about that. It seems to be significant, and certainly you had a pretty interesting reaction to it. It activated activated you.
So yeah, something. Yeah, it
Very
was yeah very motivating. So
excellent.
thank you for sharing.
Yeah, welcome, welcome. So Helen isn't able to unmute. So she is on her phone today. And I don't, if anybody knows where it is on a phone, the mic button, you could chime in and maybe that'll help Helen. Um, I don't, I don't actually know, but I should find out. Or anyway, if somebody else is smarter about that than me, chime in. So who else would like to go next?
I can help a little bit, possibly. I'm on my phone as well, and on the bottom of your screen, I have three dots. Just scroll to,
Uh-oh, Chris went on mute and her camera's off. Scroll to,
there we go. Can you hear me now?
we can hear you.
Okay, so you go to the dot on the far left, and then there will be a screen that will let you either stop or start your microphone or video.
And your video turned off and hasn't turned on yet.
There, I think I can turn it on.
It, yeah, there,
Oh, there it goes. Yeah.
great.
Okay.
Well, I might start calling on people. How about Trisha?
Oh my gosh, I knew you were going to do that.
You're next after Chris in my grid.
Okay. Um, my week has been, or last couple weeks have been pretty challenging for me, but I'm doing okay. Um, I did do a Reiki session with Tristan. That went really good. That was really good. So I think I really miss those, Reiki swaps for sure. So it's like it helps me. Of course I do Reiki, you know, on myself, and it's not the same for some reason. I know it's probably not true, but um
I think
and
it's powerful to do it with someone for sure. I know that, I always say this practice that I got assigned, is so much for me, so I completely agree.
yeah, maybe I just need to, put myself out there more. I just don't know very many people. I have reached out. I don't know if people just don't know what it is, and they're, and they don't, because I have offered, Facebook friends or whatever, and um, but it just doesn't go anywhere. So,
Just
and
keep doing things that come to your mind to do because you can't kind of force it. But
right,
just know that swapping or anything that you feel to do is part of something that's getting you ready. And it doesn't seem linear. It's not really linear. It's like there's a deepening sort of happening and a trust building. So it might say build a website, or it might say make some more business cards and just leave them, or it might just say have conversations with people and remember Reiki. I mean, just anything counts, and just know you are being led. Just completely trust that. You haven't done anything wrong, but just keep taking the steps as you're given them and don't have an outcome.
yeah,
Have an outcome, we have a lot of stuff around money or whatever other outcomes. Um, all of those have to be kind of burped up and released. So we'll have those experiences where we'll be disappointed. Someone will book and then they won't show up, or they'll book and they won't pay or whatever. And that's all just to get out that energy that says, I know how it should turn out.
right. I feel like it's just, there's things going on in my life
Yep.
right now that, maybe why that things aren't going anywhere, but I'm okay with it. I just really like doing Reiki.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that
Well,
that's what I'm kind of
use your
saying.
life. Use your life. Just know that your life right now is getting you ready.
Yeah.
Like this is Reiki happening. So whatever the thing is, if it's a worry or whatever, just know this is your Reiki practice. You're in it. You're in the master program.
Yeah.
Like when you go to school and then you have commencement, that's like the beginning. You could have been in school for 8 years getting your PhD, and then you get out of school, and now it's all about the beginning because you really still don't know anything. You just have information, but that's not, consciousness or knowledge. So we're all in that process. So just you're doing everything right. Just keep remembering that.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes, you had very challenging things to go through, and that's exactly what healers do. Exactly what healers do.
Yeah, I feel like I'm doing okay through it, so
Watch the doubt.
yeah,
I call the devil, and also the self-image. I realized that I was more willing to lose money than I was my good name, whatever that is, you know. So see
that
where that
helps.
goes up and like shed that, like, oh, no, don't need that.
That helps. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a big one for me. Okay, who's next?
I will go next. Just wanted to
Becky.
say hi to Chris. This is the first time I've seen you. And
Hello. Thank you.
I've known Laura for several years, I guess, now. And I worked with her husband, Thomas, before that. So he's the one that connected the two of us thinking that we were a match. So, and it's worked out very well.
Yeah.
Um, so I'm in Montana. I'm in Bozeman. I moved here in February. Obviously lived in Reno for many years, but I don't know. I don't really have much going on. I'm just at this point where it's not paralyzed, but it's just kind of motionless. I just still am in that like, okay, just, breathe and something's gonna come. I have been doing I started at a memory care community, just doing some volunteer kind of guided meditations for small groups, and that went well. And now I'm just kind of waiting to hear, do they want to continue? Do they want to, the director thought that she might be able to pay a little for those sessions. And then there are other communities here in town that she knows people at, so I can kind of pursue that if I decide I want to. Um, I've been working on a website for like feels like 6 months, and I'm just not doing it. So, you know, it'll happen when it happens, right, Laura?
Yep.
What
Sometimes we
else?
make it too complicated. Maybe just have a website with your name and a picture and what you
Yeah.
do, how to reach you.
Yeah. What else? There's been, I've had some visitors, which has been great. My sister-in-law is here this weekend, kind of unexpectedly from Reno, so I may leave early today. It just depends on what's going on. But I don't know, Laura, if you've heard of Aaron Foster. He's a comedian in Reno.
Mm-mm.
He is coming to Bozeman for a show on the 19th of September. So he and I have been in touch. I've never met him before. We have lots of mutual friends, but I've never actually met him in person. So he'll be here. And then my other friend, Jenny from Reno, she's retired from BLM, Horse and Burro program, and she did a documentary in conjunction with Boot Barn and some production company. And so that's being shown here that same weekend. So she'll be here. So we'll go up to Big Sky and go to the Lone Peak Film Festival. So just some fun stuff, you
Yeah.
know. I do need to, I keep saying it, I do need to get back to, finding some dollar income rather than just joy income.
Do you?
Yeah, I do. But, I'm not on the streets or near it, so I'm good.
That's what I mean. Like we have all these. I'll just share again that I figured out I could go on a sunny day, go outside and stand in the middle of the street, and I wouldn't be able to make a shadow unless God wanted it. Because I thought I needed all these things and I needed to take care of business and blah, blah, blah. Nothing I tried was working and blah. And it's just like, okay, I get it. Like I can't, I'm not in charge.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm
Takes
just
some of
going
us
to
longer than
enjoy.
others to figure that out, though.
What was that?
Said it takes some of us longer than others to figure out that we're not in control.
Well, I'll just be waiting for you. I control nothing. Uh, so, so glad you're here, and I'm glad you're having fun because I think that's God's plan for you right now. You had a lot of not fun for a long time,
Yeah, yeah.
so enjoy. And then when
Thank
the lightness comes in, we're a lot easier to get
Oh,
moved.
I love the rockets.
Awesome. Did Helen figure out her microphone? Uh-oh, is she frozen?
She looks frozen.
Okay, so maybe not. Well, how about our friend George? Uh-oh, I can't hear you, dear, but I know you're unmiked. This happened once before, I think. And I heard you earlier. See about your driver on your mic.
15, 1, 2,
Got
testing.
it. Got it.
Got it?
Yep.
Yeah, that was weird because it didn't do anything except for open settings and closed it. But I don't like using the headphone mic because it muffles because my hair gets in the way or something, and it's clearer on the. I don't know. It's a newer computer, so I'm still trying to do that stuff. So yes, we
There's
are not in
always so much
control.
energy around this group.
It's the problem. Is all this energy.
Anything works.
It's like a Faraday cage being around you people, man. All the energy is just Reiki. Anything else does not work.
We all need to get George's grounding mats.
Yeah, man, I tell you, that was life changing. Grounding mats are life changing. If you want to be with your Mother Earth all night long, get you a grounding sheet, and it will. I'm 62. I've had over a dozen surgeries just on my shoulder. I've had bone taken out of every hip, and the iliac crest, all that, front and back. So I have a lot of aches and pains. But I should say I did. But once after about 2 months into that grounding sheet, yeah, when I get up in the morning, my joints don't feel like they're full of mud, you know? Why? Because we're hit with our frequency from our phones, TVs, just being out on earth. We're hit with all kinds of stuff and it imbalances us. So the only way to get rebalance is stay outside barefoot all the time, which that's good to do. You get 20 minutes of that. But when you're grounded all night, you wake up balanced and ready to attack the day in a more not I'm not anxious anymore. My anger just is gone, anxiety and all that. So I know Reiki helped with that as long because with that. But yeah, it's been mind blowing. I have one lady says it doesn't work, and I go, well, that's because you think it doesn't work. Um, our minds are very powerful. So I'm doing well. I'm keeping busy with a lot of distant Reiki.
Oh, good.
Um, I do that right at my journal, my book. It's not perfect, but I can read it. Like I said, unless you're a doctor, you can't read my handwriting anyway. So, I mean, a nurse, I should say, right, like a doctor. But I've been doing a lot of that for animals and peoples. Um, um, some people ask me if I have permission to send them Reiki. They're like, "Huh?" I go Google it because it's hard to explain to people. They think it's some weird thing. And some people had no clue what it was, and I get a call back saying, "I don't know what happened, but I just had neck surgery and it's been 3 days and it felt like I never had the surgery." And I'm
Wow.
like, well, that's cool. Um, so stuff like that. I enjoy that secret stuff, I should say. I call it secret. I believe you get more jewels in your crown when you do things in secret than when you get a pat on your own back. So, but I'm with family, I say, so I'll talk to y'all people about it, but I usually I don't mention a lot. I enjoy that joy from doing something in secret. It's just exciting. So spend $65. It might be the best $65 you have spent by getting a grounding sheet. The mats are fine, but they do move around. So, but spiritually, and mentally, I feel well. I have a dog coming up that's having surgery. Um, Hopefully it will save its life. Um, I've been working with the nonprofit group called Option. It's a veterinarian clinic. And I know the people in charge. I used to work with them as a volunteer at the Humane Society here in Reno, but they all left because they started doing shady things about no-kill shelters. And the county made them do that. And so a lot of people bolted and they opened new nonprofits. And it's called Humane something. But Bonnie Brown was the CEO at there when I started volunteering, which really helped me a lot. If you don't know what to do, volunteer. It's amazing being able to give of yourself. And it just brings you life, I think. So it's exciting. Um, but it's hard if you have a full-time job. That's difficult. But at the same time, this dog, I'm trying to work with them to be able because it is a nonprofit and a lot of people can't afford surgeries, they raise money for the animals, and stuff like that. I'm trying to work in where we can get a Reiki time to people to come in, or we could go wherever the animals are to so I have to meet with Bonnie and the people in charge about getting Reiki as a treatment in the clinic. So be thinking about that. I think that'd be exciting for because there's a thing called economic euthanasia, and that's what happens to a lot of animals. And that's their whole fight. They're fighting against economic euthanasia on animals because people love animals, they get them, but they can't afford to have their teeth cleaned or anything, and the animals suffer horribly. I mean, this dog's breath was so bad within 100 feet you could smell it. It was really bad. It looked like it ate a bunch of white cheese. It was on it. It was horrible. But she has surgery. Rosie has surgery on the 3rd of September. So she's a dachshund or dachshund. So if y'all would remember to send Rosie some Reiki on the 3rd, early in the morning, because they're probably going to pull all her teeth out. She had a canine that got an abscess and it actually blew a hole up into her sinus. And so she can't breathe through her nose right now. But she's doing better. We got her on antibiotics and pain med. So she should be doing well. I know that I never met the dog except for through Reiki distance. And when I first saw the dog, the lady freaked out because it just ran up to me and just started jumping. She's like, this dog's never moved that much in a month, and but I literally felt the dog when I was doing, I never even met it before. I felt its energy. I felt its pain. I felt what it was going through. I felt what it was thinking about why it hasn't checked out yet because of the things that's happened to the family. And I probably wouldn't have checked out either, all the stuff that them poor people have gone through. So it was really, it was eye-opening for me.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, pretty
Cool.
good.
So, just an invitation if you want to share a picture, if you have one of Rosie, or just the name and the date in the group in the WhatsApp.
Yep,
And then,
I could send a little, I have a little video of her.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
whatever.
that where the lady sent a video and I can't watch the whole thing just because it's rough. But I was able to connect with that and then spiritually connect through Reiki distance, even though I don't have the Reiki one, which I probably might do before my master's.
Oh,
Um,
the animal
so
Reiki.
yeah, the animal Reiki, yeah.
Anytime, just let
So
me know and we'll do something. So, yeah.
yeah. So it's kind of so I've been busy doing that and just not being weird, trying to control things. Yes, we all can have that issue, and expectations on things is just disappointment. So I try and stay away from that myself because it's just, yeah, it can get really rough on you mentally when you expect something and it never turns out the way you expect. Then you think something's wrong with you, but you just got to let life flow. Reiki does no harm, so you'll be fine. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, beautiful. Thank you, George. Good to see you and your smiling
good to
face.
see you.
Hear you doing such good work with your Reiki. And you remind me of Joel Goldsmith. He would often say to keep your spiritual life secret and that don't go to, not that you can't go to church. He was speaking in the 50s and 60s, so different kind of time, but not that you can't go to church, but that your real prayer, it happens between you and God when nobody knows, not as a show, but in a way. So anyway, you would just remind me of a principle that he held very fast. And also this idea of the animal responding to you that you never met in person, and clearly this animal knows you and you knew the animal. That happened to him as well. He had a dog that he worked with, and this dog immediately saw him and knew exactly who he was and loved him, and anyway, and they were lifelong friends, he said, so yeah, very cool. In fact, one of these times I want to play an audio from one of his disciples who, not disciple, but students is what he would call them. But, because I'm always careful in our groups. I never want to tell you how to think spiritually or what to believe. And yet, for me, Reiki is so um, entwined or enmeshed in my spiritual practice, and also how I practice is part of my spiritual practice. So sometimes I'm trying to navigate that boundary so that I'm not seeming to be, you know, telling you how to relate to God, whatever that is, the God of your understanding. But this particular audio from her name is Virginia Stevenson is very potent and also neutral in terms of its language. And I think everything that we talk about in terms of consciousness is, spelled out so well. And you might get some tips that would resonate with you. Um, his teaching, Joel Goldsmith, I'm talking about, his teaching he called the infinite way. But his process or his journey with it was he had a revelation. His consciousness changed like that. So he's in a different consciousness. And then he's, he's a healer, and people are having miraculous healings through his presence. And then these teachings start to come. And he read 3,000 books over 15 years or 10 years. I think it was 10 years. He read 3,000 books. He also learned at Harvard how to read Sanskrit just so he could read original documents from the scripture, Advaita Vedanta, the Bhagavad Gita, and etc. And in the process of all this educating himself that he did because he was not a religious person. So he had to go out and study. What he learned was the infinite way wasn't really new, that it was here to help people have an experience that all these other teachings have been pointing us to. And that actually was one of the slides I think Cynthia presented too. And I've mentioned it before, but just she had a slide and she touched on it that all the major religions of the world, if you imagine they're all ladders going up a mountain, and that as these students of these different religions get higher and higher up their ladders, their own particular way, they begin to get closer and closer to each other in terms of their experience and how they speak about their religion or spirituality. So if you're talking about Christianity, then you go to the Christian mystics. If you're talking about Hinduism, you go to the ones that were illumined from the Advaita Vedanta or something like that. And every tradition has those higher these beings that became illuminated through that pathway. So every pathway is valid, and they're all leading to the same truth, is I think what is so important, that there isn't one better than another. They're all just symbolically different mechanisms for meeting the mind where where it thinks it is, to take it up a ladder to get to the truth. And of Course in Miracles says that right in the very beginning. It says, this isn't the only path by any means. It's here to save a Western mind time if you want it, So it was written for a particular type of mind in a particular time. So anyway, that's my little setup for maybe one of these meetings playing some Virginia for you, because what I like about her versus I've listened to thousands of hours literally of Joel Goldsmith. I play him at night when I can't sleep, and I often wake up at 2 a.m, as you guys know, and I'm listening. And then throughout my day, and if I'm driving, I'm listening. So anyway, but what I love about Virginia, who's very recent for me to find, is that she didn't have the same kind of experience as he did. So she has a beautiful way of, for me anyway, being more of a bridge, because she can kind of, um, I don't know how better to say it. So he had a lot of metaphors, but his classwork, most of it was being in his presence. I think that was where his teachings were there, A lot of times, some of it is kind of rambly or it's about politics or something, but you know that if you were there, something was cooking everybody in the process of him kind of giving their minds something to think about and ponder. And he did have many, many juicy sharings, of course, but with her, she really can like give you the nuts and bolts of where we get off and how to correct. And I don't know if I have a good way of explaining it yet. And it's certainly just my subjective opinion, but I'm finding her at the, you know, after 10 or 15 years of Joel, maybe 11 actually, 11 years of Joel, I'm finding her just so incredibly potent. And so is Thomas. And I think that you might, some of it is very grounded in biblical scripture, and that might not be everybody's taste. I'm finding it interesting because I don't know the Bible. But some of it is not, doesn't use that language. And so, yeah, we'll give it a try for a few minutes and see what you guys think sometime. So, did everybody, I think everybody spoke except Helen, and I guess not sure Helen can unmute. So Helen, next time you can have a double share. And I got to see Helen. So I got to see Helen twice on my trip. Once I broke my journey from Laramie to Boulder, and then I went on to Crestone 4 hours more. Then I did 4 hours from Crestone to Boulder, and we had coffee again. And then I went 2 hours more to Laramie. So she got the before and after, and I felt very sick on the way down, and I felt totally transformed on the way up. So it was just a really cool. I wanted to catch her again if she was available on my way back. I don't know if she knew I didn't feel good, but yeah, I was full of toxicity. It's like I've had a whole physical reset as part of something going on. And that's kind of how I think of my trip, actually, is probably not just my own personal reset, a very impersonal reset as well. Maybe it will resonate with you. Um, so I guess I'll just start my slideshow here, and hopefully it will. So she's just chimed in. Am listening. Android phone making no sense. So anyway, yes, technology with all the frequency, as Becky said. And let me see here. How do I start this baby? Slideshow from the beginning, and then I'll share my screen. You guys can see my slide?
Mhm.
Okay, good. So I discovered Crestone is like a undiscovered Sedona. I had no idea about Crestone, Colorado, and maybe you guys know, but I didn't realize it's a hugely spiritual place. There are temples and retreats centers, and there aren't very many people in general, but everybody there just about is in the spiritual community in some way. And there's a particular research center there, and I'm forgetting the name. It's something like Center for Research, but I can't remember, Consciousness Center for Research or something like that. I'd heard of them before. They're located there, and they're doing research on scientific research on the power of consciousness and prayer to change reality. So there's just lots of Buddhists there. And anyway, it's kind of an amazing place, but there are very few people, unlike Sedona, where there's tons and tons and tons of people. This is also dark sky country, so there are very few man-made lights around. So you have a very good environment for looking at the stars and photography, and also, of course, what we were doing on Saturday night, stargazing in terms of connecting maybe with our galactic friends. So I'll tell you that story too as part of this. And I really didn't know why I was going, just like Japan last year. Why is this not going here? So, but interesting. And so I'm going to just share. And honestly, I still don't know how all these dots connect. I just know there was a lot of weird synchronicities. One of them was the Japanese presence at this conference was big. And it felt very connected somehow to my trip with Trisha last November. I can't explain all of this. I can just say, okay, there's no accident that 9 months later, I am now in Crestone, Colorado, and out of 40 people, 14 of them were Japanese. And the guy that was pretty much, he did a majority of the presenting, not all of it. It was fairly split 3 ways, but it felt like he had more time. He is a French guy who is a fluent Japanese speaker and writer, and I guess they rank your abilities just in the Japanese language, and he's the highest you can get if you're a foreigner from another language and culture. So that means he's completely fluent and understands the nuances. And so so even though he's a French guy, his and he's a UFO contactee. He wrote his book about his experience in Japanese. He says to translate it into French just feels like this very daunting task because of the language. So I'm starting with that because I feel like there's something about that is part of what we're coming into is this time where even our languaging is a mindset. Where we come from is a mindset. Our language that we speak is a mindset. And he can go so quickly into a very deep place in using Japanese. And people in Japan can understand him so quickly that it's so easy and fluid for him to share his experiences in that culture and in that language. Whereas in his own culture and language, he finds it almost impossible and he's not looking forward to translating it. He did, however, just translate it into English. And while we were there, it finally became available. So it's brand new in English. And I'll show you the cover and the name. But so he used the word Goan, and I'm going to translate it. And it was definitely a Goan experience for me, which means meant to happen, sort of this serendipitous things being brought together in a way that's very magical. And you can feel the presence of that invisible that's operating. I felt it was part of a reset, both personal but also impersonal. I know that the astrologers are sort of talking about that, the ones that I follow. And
Buddy.
pardon me? Oh, and then it feels like a beginning of a new chapter where there's more of a broad awareness about galactic presence. And I'm going to talk about why I say that too in the slides. And then I definitely met new important contacts, and there was a deepening of an understanding about consciousness, but through an experience. So yeah, bear with me because this is the first time trying to explain what happened, and it's not very easy to talk about. So you kind of want to know what the heck 3 people that come from very different perspectives are doing presenting in a way, but it was perfect. So I don't know how much of the UFO lore and history you all have, been interested in the past for yourselves. It I was always wired with this interest. When I was a kid, I was drawing flying saucers and, you know, the movie Close Encounters for me was like so earth-shattering and, just so inspiring, actually. I know it was for a lot of people. So I'm not an expert and I haven't read a ton of books, but I do check into the topic once in a while, every couple of years, what's going on. And I remember watching Stephen Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer, and his disclosure where he did the press conference with all the military people, the NORAD people, the air pilots, the people guarding nuclear facilities. He had a huge panel of people from all these different disciplines come and testify as part of this conference. Then right after that, 9/11 hit, and it's like it never happened. So disclosure has happened for forever. It's not that we're waiting for disclosure in a way, it's something else. There's a lot of negative, fear-based rabbit holes as part of this whole, story. So I had to learn over the years how to navigate that and stay out of those. What I love about the time that we're in is, and it's not just these people. I have another reference I want to give you if you're interested. At the end, I'll talk about him. But more so now is this idea that all the fear is unwarranted, that actually the presence that is coming in these you know, different ways into our lives from what we call other planets, there or other dimensions. It's very loving, very high consciousness. And this is a shift, I think, that's happening. And we're kind of at the cusp. And we might even say that Paula Harris is, it's been happening for a while, but now the fact that she is pivoting so strongly and not even um, not wanting to even be in that world anymore because of the fact that it won't address this profound phenomenon that happens, which is the consciousness changes of all the contactees. So her story is really important, I think, as a kind of a marker that this is perhaps a reset or a shift into a new way of relating, because her history is for decades being a journalist who focused and covered the UFO topic. She's met just about everybody there is to meet. She's good friends with Jacques Vallée. Jacques Vallée was the French guy in the movie Close Encounters, and I have included a picture of him. So he's an incredible guy in terms of his knowledge. And anyway, so she in 2023 had a sort of an existential crisis and was going to just completely leave the entire topic and the whole field. And she was kind of devastated because her whole life has been trying to illuminate and get people talking about this, deeper aspects, not just the crafts and the machines and the technology. And she was just realizing it's never going to happen. And so she was at the lowest point she'd ever been, and she met in Paris, France, where Julian lives with his husband Craig. She met Julian, and Julian said, "Look at me, I'm here, I'm here." And so she now calls Julian her angel because Julian is, yeah, I'll talk about him as we go along, but he's kind of new to the scene, but not new to these contacts and all. He has a fantastic story. So those two, so Paula Harris, veteran from the UFO world, knows everyone who's anyone in this subject, is good friends with Stephen Greer, good friends with Jacques Vallée, et cetera, et cetera. She also has a personal archive that is vast of photographs of all sorts. And she's just now donated it to Rice University, although you can't go visit it yet because nobody has archived it. Nobody really knows what to do with it. So hopefully that'll change. And then there's Cynthia, and Cynthia Sue Larson is somebody that I've shared interviews with. I've known about her for, I don't know, 5 or 6 or 7 years or so. She's an interesting person, hard for me to define Cynthia. She's kind of she's got a BA in quantum physics from UC Berkeley. She was also a VP at Citibank. Um, and she's like knows she's multidimensional and has known for her whole life. And even when she was in the normal world of, corporate banking, she was using her multidimensionality really to do her job. So she talks a little bit about that just in terms of she would do the work of 10 people and she would do things that she didn't even have knowledge about, like legal stuff. She would write up contracts that would be great, and just because she could tap into whatever, the Akashic record or whatever she was tapping into. So she has many books out there, and she's also been a huge proponent or instructor on what is known as the Mandela effect. And I'm going to talk more about that. And so that's been a huge aspect of her writing and talking. So, like I said, it felt in a weird way that I can't quite describe yet, like a continuation or chapter 2 on my visit to Karuna that I made with Trisha in November. Sorry, Mount Karama in Japan for the Karuna Reiki class. And I wanted to just remind us with Honshaze Shonen and just what Yusui said. Yusui said when he woke up, I am in the universe and the universe is in me. So he's pointing to oneness. He's pointing to the idea that I am this one here, but I'm not discrete, separate. I'm actually all of it. You're all of it. We're all of it. We're all one. So these words don't make sense to the linear mind. So we keep throwing new, we keep twisting the language a little and again and again and again so that our minds kind of can begin to open to the profound thing that's being pointed to. Language doesn't really do it justice. And then Honshaze when William Rand was able to spend time with Hiroshi Doi, who is part of the original Usui Gakkai in Japan and also a teacher, and when they were trying to tease out what is the higher meaning of this symbol, Hiroshi Doi agreed that the meaning is the origin of all is consciousness. So that's another pointer into this idea. And then I just thought I would remind us all that my Reiki certificate from Japan was dated on 11/6, even though it should have been dated on 11/10. Should have been 1/11. I liked that idea but it started on the 6th, and that's the date of the American presidential election. And we're in Japan for this election, and the whole world is pivoting, it feels like, or at least the Western world is pivoting, but we're in Japan, and Karuna means compassion in action. So compassion in action, Reiki, on the day of the American presidential election in Japan on Mount Karama, one of the most sacred places on the planet. It's been a pilgrimage spot for millennia. And also, I just had that priest experience where I felt like there was a transmission I couldn't really put into words. But his face was not from this earth when he turned around. And Colleen later, I heard her say, I've seen him in town and he doesn't look like that. So she saw the same thing I did. And he's been with me in some way ever since my consciousness was somehow affected. So then there were 14 people from Japan in Crestone, Colorado. And then we have Julian, he's a Frenchman who wrote this book in Japanese and is going to be sharing a lot of Japanese ideas. There's a picture here of all these people are Japanese people. That there were more than that, but that was just a shot, you know. And then one of the things we did on the last day was we made a circle holding hands, and we had um, a Japanese person and then someone else, and then a Japanese person and someone else. So, so can I put into exact language what all this means? No, but I can say it was definitely go on. And we're going to get to that in a minute. So I've talked mostly about this, but just introducing our presenters, Paula Harris, it's her conference that her company puts on. She has property in Crestone, and that's where we went to do stargazing. She also has a home there. She has homes everywhere, I think. And she's Italian and American, and she knows everybody. This cartoon here, what do you have to offer? This is based on a true situation with Colonel Corso, who met an alien after the was it the Trinity test in New Mexico. And this guy came out of a cave. I haven't read the book, so I'm trying to remember from memory what she said. And, you know, the Western mind is, especially the military, because the military were mostly the ones that were were meeting up with these people because the galactic uh, beings are monitoring very closely what's happening here with nuclear weaponry because it affects the whole when we set off weapons. And also because they care about us and they care about the planet because the planet is alive. And so here he comes from, you know, because what do you have to offer? He wants to know what technology. And then the response he received was a new world if you can take it. So he's talking about a consciousness shift. So they're here to teach and coach. They're not here to dictate. They honor free will. And as we know from our Reiki training, that's the sign of a higher consciousness is they honor free will. And this is Corso too, you know, saying that his fiber optics actually, that fiber optic technology actually came from a saucer. And so I know this might sound shocking if you've never heard of this stuff before. I take it as almost like, you know, stuff that is so self-evident by now because I've seen so many testimonies about this stuff for so long that I forget that not everybody is kind of up to speed, or for some people it might be rather shocking. So I apologize if I'm shocking in any way. But there's lots of information out there to go read about or to watch documentaries on. And this picture here, so Paula walked around. This is actually a video that I just have a picture of. So she's got a friend in Milan who, for 2 decades, has been able to ask and receive a craft over his house in Milan, and has made very, you know, numerous high quality videos. And she actually just shared a link for him because I posted some. She actually saw my post of these pictures and added who we can look up. So I haven't done that yet because I just saw her post this morning. So that'll be great. So maybe I can get the original video to show you guys. But so one day this friend of hers said, I'd like to see something spiritual because all he ever sees are these crafts. So he went outside and he sees this perfect rosary. Now remember, he's in a very deeply Roman Catholic country, right? So he's in Milan in Italy, and he gets something that would be appropriate for his spiritual mind. And if you see the video, this cross is actually kind of floating. It's doing like this and these beads are kind of shimmering. And that's what was over his sky, or in the sky over his house. Whoops. Whoop. I already talked about most of this, I think. Oh, one thing is there's a connection between near-death experiencers, UFOs, and consciousness shifts. And that's Julian's next book is that he's writing. He hasn't finished it yet. So we didn't get into a lot of detail around that, but I just want to kind of to say that. And this, by the way, is a picture of Jacques Vallée. So he's the guy that was represented in the movie Close Encounters, but he's written countless books and there's lots of interviews and things with him. And then here's Cynthia and Paula and Julian. So Julian started in, he was only 16 when he had his first contact, and he lived in Burgundy in France. And he was at a friend's house because he had he borrowed a telescope, and there was something happening with Jupiter and the moon, and he thought, well, that's a perfect excuse to go try out this telescope. And he and a friend were on this great deck, and he had a really profound experience, but it was the beginning. And he's had countless experiences, and he's a very fun presenter, but you can tell the depth that he comes from. So he had so much fear around what was happening. But of course, he told it in kind of a humorous, self-deprecating way, in a very humble way. And there wasn't really anybody he could talk to about it, even though his friend experienced the first contact. His friend denied the whole thing. Like, oh yeah, we didn't really see that. That was just that was just a whatever, he kind of his own mind partitioned it off and called it something else. And then it just kept happening and it kept changing. He's he has face-to-face contact with these beings, and he also has very strong telepathy with them. And they've been changing his consciousness. That's the whole thing for him. And so he's had to be trained very much like David Clements, the Oxford trained physicist that I've shared interviews with. And Helen and I are like groupies with David. We love him. But David is building these living energetics, he calls it, devices with the help of the Arcturians and Pleiadians, and he calls them his teams. But why I bring up David is that, like David, Julian also went through the same and is still going through it, the same undoing of his mental mind, because the mental mind is very limited, and we can't comprehend the communication from these beings from that mental mind. We have to let that go. We have to go from the heart. And then we can get the full transmission, and it can begin to unpack its meaning in us. And so he talked a lot about, the strategies he uses with his mind, because it still comes up, and I haven't read his book yet, obviously. I just bought it because it just came out less than a week ago. So I can't remember everything he said, even. It was like I was just being washed in all of this information. And so I'm looking forward to reading his story and taking more time with it. This is a picture of Craig, his husband. And the reason I included him is that I sat next to him and I got to meet Craig. I didn't know who he was at first. And he is one of the sweetest guys. And he's one of the people I feel is now kind of one of my contacts from this meeting that is really important. I don't know exactly why. We've had some exchanges already, and I just love his presence. And he's very funny. Turns out he never mentioned it, but I saw it on his Facebook profile once he accepted my friend request that he's a New York best-selling author 2 times. He's got a book because he met Julian in Paris. He went to France to make pancakes. And I'm thinking, what do you mean? France has crepes. How can Americans teach French anything about food, especially pancakes, you know? But he did. And then he has a memoir on top of that book that's also got pancake in the title. But yeah, I'm going to buy his books as well. And his connection, because I asked him, have you, because you've been with Julian, believe it or not, they've been married for 2 decades, 20 years. And I thought that was just really sweet. And I asked Craig through all this experience with Julian, if he's had his own contacts. And he said, the weird thing is no. He said, when he was a kid, he didn't have a very good home life. He had a very difficult childhood and upbringing. And he would go to this pond or something, and he would just cry out to the heavens that he wanted to see a UFO. He wanted to be contacted. He wanted, them to rescue him. Take me away. And so it was really weird that he meets Julian and becomes life partners with this guy who's like, oh, really? That's interesting, when he found out that Greg felt that way when he was a kid. But even still, he's never had his own experience. But what he told me is that he didn't go into detail, and I just didn't have enough time to talk to him. I wanted to like corral him and, have hours and hours with just him to pick his brain and feel his presence. He said that his connection is through the NDE side. And so he's learning that that's this whole valuable aspect of this phenomenon. So I don't know exactly what that means, or if that means he had his own NDE or what. But anyway, I'm looking forward to knowing more, and I'll share when I learn, and also to reading the book that Julian's working on about NDEs and UFOs. So Julian talked a lot about language as a mindset, and we remember that kanji, the Japanese written form of language, is symbolic. It's a pictogram language. And he said that that's actually how the galactic beings will communicate, through these images. And he gave an example on this slide of, like when we see an envelope, we know that's mail. We know it's electronic mail, and there's a lot of understanding. Or this is one of the torii gates, right, from Japan. And when you see this symbol in Japan, there's a shrine there. So anyway, and this is hot springs, because hot baths, hot springs are a huge thing in Japan. They love them, and there's a name for it that I'm forgetting. But if you see this symbol, then you get very excited. And he used these 2 words one of them I've already mentioned, Hado. He kept saying Hado all the time. And it's kind of like the vibe of the place, right? So it's when you say we're vibing, well, Hado would be the Japanese word for that. And, it's also that idea of that invisible that we're beginning to trust, like in my meditation, that spiritual energy, or that consciousness that's pure, that is us and is also guiding us, and that is manifesting as all these forms, including who we think we are. And he gave a different interpretation of this symbol that we recognize as the second part of the word Reiki, right? So this is what we learn from the book, Healing Touch, is that this symbol is a boiling pot of rice, because that's the carbohydrate, that's the fuel for the Japanese culture. And so Reiki would be the spiritually guided, energy, or life force energy. But he says that this is the wind, and that this is the rice field, or the harvest. And so So this is a beautiful idea I wanted to share with you, that you know that the invisible is present in the field as the wind. You can't see the wind, but you can see the effects of the wind as it goes through the crop because it's blowing the grasses. And so, that is another definition of this hado, or this idea that there's this invisible force. But we can't see it, but we can be conscious of its effects in our lives, in our healing sessions, and in the way that our life begins to unfold kind of miraculously as we begin to trust it and let go of our blocks. And then Goen is the other word he kept using, and that's the idea of a fated connection. And that's how I felt from the beginning, like, kind of this feeling of I'm not in Kansas anymore. Here I am in Crestone, Colorado. It turns out it's a spiritual mecca I never heard of, and there's all these Japanese people, and and it just kept going on. I kept getting more and more like hits of these serendipitous things people would say or experiences. And Goen is a Buddhist influenced idea of how people and events are connected through destiny. And I didn't realize that that's the meaning of the hole in the center of the 5 yen coin. So, and then there's Cynthia. I have a hard time describing her. I would encourage you to check her books and her videos. She's got a great website called Reality Shifters. And she talks about quantum jumping, and she talks about the Mandela effect, and she has a book called High Vibrational Money. Anybody worried about money might want to check it out. She did a thing on the Hopi Rock prophecy. She's very concerned about AI. That was part of her talk. And I have to say, I missed a big chunk of what she had to say, and it's a whole other story. It was the strangest thing, but the first day I found our place, no problem. I was there early in the morning for the start. Then we had a break for lunch and I could barely find my way back. And then I tried to get there for the afternoon session and I couldn't. My GPS kept leading me to dead ends over and over and over and over. Finally, I trusted the Hado and I just thought, I'm not supposed to be there. So I missed a huge part because that was Cynthia's talk. Um, so what was interesting too is that same day, Paula and Cynthia went home for dinner. No, after the evening talk, before the stargazing, and I missed all of that. They went home, and it took them 7 minutes to get 15 minutes away to the wrong place, which was her property. They were supposed to be going home. They went to the wrong place, and it only took half the time it should have taken. And then it took them 2 hours to find her house. Now she lives there. And from one end of town to the other end of town is like 15 minutes on a dirt road, or a paved road. Either way you go, 10 minutes. It took them 2 hours. Paula said she was so frustrated. She said, I know it's you, pointing to Cynthia, like, you're a portal. I'm kicking you out. I got to get home. And Cynthia's like just laughing. She said, yeah, it was pitch black and she was just going to ditch me on the road. She's like, it's not me. So anyway, there was something going on and I felt like maybe that's what happened to me. I was stuck in some vortex I couldn't get through. So I just trust that I got what I needed. So Cynthia's concerns about AI have to do with her recollection of a future life. So this gets really weird. She remembers a future life where AI was in charge and not from a compassionate, wise perspective. And she feels that she was kind of hunted, tracked down in different lives by the same AI, two different AIs, I guess. Anyway, it's a bizarre story. And she feels like the Hopi Rock prophecy is about two different destinations. And this is maybe speaking to that bifurcation we've talked about, possibly, of the collective dream, where one direction goes to technology without wisdom and compassion and heart. And that's ultimately a self-destructive path. And then the other one goes towards awakening, you know. So she talked about her opinions on that. But I missed it. And, you know, I thought this was worth sharing. This is from her article she wrote on her website. My minimum requirements are that AI operate with honesty, integrity, and love. And they're not doing anything close to and that's not anything close to what AI chatbots are doing. That's her opinion. And then this cut off, but it says the MIT's first brain scan. This is somebody who relies on Chat GPT, and this is someone who doesn't. So that's, I guess, from MIT. So that is also my concern, is that, you know, I'm hearing, oh yeah, you can just give it a roll, tell it you're a top personal coach and you need to build a website and you want to attract high dollar coaching sessions, and, you know, and it'll put itself in that mindset and reflect to you what you want to hear and write out your website for you. And it's very there's a lot of talk around it being a confirmation bias system. So it's going to reflect back to you what you want to hear. And is that really the most helpful thing? So, yeah, I don't have much more to say on that subject of AI. I do have my own concerns. So, another aspect of her talk that I know more about from other things I've seen and also my own experience is the Mandela effect. And I thought I would just talk briefly about what it is for people who might not know about what it is. But it's called the Mandela effect because one of the biggest collective distortions in memory, where groups of people have two different versions of what they remember, is Nelson Mandela. And I remember that he died in prison in the 1980s. And then all of a sudden, I heard that he was the president of South Africa. And I was like, how did that happen? Because I remember when he died in prison. And it turned out it wasn't just me. It turned out it was a huge number of people. And there were all these questions about it. And so that's why it's called the Mandela effect. And there are a lot of examples. And there's a source right here that you can go to that's free, just an article from Good Housekeeping, of all things, that have a whole bunch of examples. And so do you remember this one or do you remember this one of the fruit of the loom? Do you remember the cornucopia or no cornucopia? Raise your hand if you remember the cornucopia version. Me too. Evidently, it's always been this, according to the company. How about Looney Tunes? Was it spelled with Toons like cartoons, or Tunes like a tune, a musical tune? Everybody who remembers this one, raise your hand. Everybody who remembers this one, raise your hand. Okay, see, we're split on that one. And then who remembers Tom Cruise in Risky Business doing a dance? This is what they say happened now, but I remember he had dark glasses. Who remembers dark glasses?
Mm.
I remember dark glasses. Shades. Yeah, he doesn't have shades. He does. So there's a lot of them, like Kit Kat with a hyphen or without a hyphen. Also, I should have shared the Berenstein Bears ones, because that one I was just like, what? There's a whole different spelling for the Berenstein Bears. And I read all of them, you know, and evidently now it's AIN, and that it was EIN when I was a kid on my books. But, you know, the idea here is that if I had those books on my bookshelf, I would go back and I would find that it wasn't that way. So this is something in the memory that is getting shifted.
I have some in a box from the early 90s.
Oh,
So when I unpack them, I will share what I find.
okay.
I remember EIN. local bookstore just this week. I saw them, AIN. So I'll share my findings.
Great. There's another one I didn't find a picture for about Publishers Clearinghouse and Ed McMahon. Who remembers Ed McMahon doing Publishers Clearinghouse?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the company says Ed McMahon has never been any part of Publishers Clearinghouse advertising. I remember he would come with the letter with the big envelope. Oh, you won. Yeah, they say nope, he's never done that. Um, and Cynthia in her book has a ton of examples of her own. And she has one where she was, there's even people who have been listed as deceased who weren't deceased, you know. So
Hey,
you can
this
all,
is
oh, go ahead.
this also kind of reminds me of being raised in a family where one sibling thinks a different way that it happened. I've seen that in my family. And I'm like, didn't happen that way. Is it kind of like that? I mean, I'm like looking at this going, no way, this is so weird.
It's a little, it's, you know, it could be, right? You know, also memory is very subjective. And that's why the Mandela effect is so interesting because whereas a personal memory, I remember it one way, you remember it another way. And we can, you know, that's been a known phenomenon for a long time. If there was a car accident and four bystanders, they all have a different version of what happened, right? So that's more like subjectively how memory works, but because we're always filtering things out. That's how our brains work. Um, but in these examples, these are like so-called objective. We think we live in an objective world, but it can't be because even the facts are off, like a death, you know, or a branding picture or whatever. So with the Mandela effect, it's that experience on, but it feels different because there's actual, you know, when you go back to look it up, the facts have changed. Like the Ed McMahon, you know, never being on Publishers Clearinghouse advertising. And I mean, that was a huge advertising campaign for years and years, you know. It was actually a cliche, you know. But here's another example I was going to mention. It's possible, you know, I share my story about Ray in the hospital. And after the shift that I had in mind, my reality shifts and he's not dying anymore. Okay, so that's one. But also 10 years later, the doctors see that his B cells don't work and they want him to come back for tests because you know, I think they're shocked that he's not sick already and they say he's going to be. It's just a matter of time. By the time he's a teenager, he'll be sick all the time. But my gut feeling was no, I think he's not sick and we're not going to start that up again. So he's turning 29 in November. Now, by their reality, he should be a very sick, he should be probably dead by now. So I think that could be maybe one because they had fact, but that wasn't my fact. That wasn't my reality. So I'm not, yeah. And then she has a list. This is Cynthia, I'm saying, of what could it be, you know? And of course, just about everybody scientific, you know, will say, oh, it's a false memory confabulation. So, but just read the list because we're already having these weird experiences together. Like I remember the third Thursday in November was Thanksgiving. Who changed it to the fourth Thursday? You know? Kidneys, there's even a thing called a kidney punch, right? In a particular place. And so boxers need to stay away from the lower side back. Kidneys have moved. Yeah. So the kidney punch doesn't even make sense anymore because the kidneys aren't there. So there's all these weird things. And some people think they've always been there, you know? So some people think it's the CERN laboratory. It's the fact that we live in a simulation or a dream. It's quantum phenomena, quantum immortality, time travelers, converging timelines, nonlinear orthogonal time shifts. I'm not sure what that means. Spiritual apocalypse, Schumann resonance, evolution of consciousness. So anyway, we don't know. I told you about the weird things that were happening with Cynthia and Paula trying to get home. I couldn't find my way back to the event. This symbol kept showing up. It showed up maybe 3 weeks ago to me. Then he has a slide with something that's different but very similar. And then right after that, I see something on Facebook that looks very similar to mine, especially. And this idea is the phenomenon of energy. The energy flows and it rises to 3. And there's like a exponential function by the triangles, is what he wrote. A compass for living as your true self and joy. So he was kind of teaching a grounding exercise through breathing and connecting to the earth and connecting to the source energy. And this is his teacher, by the way. And how I'm feeling about this, and maybe mine should have another triangle, play with it. I don't know. I'm feeling like this is definitely a powerful way to draw in the higher self energies. We exist on multiple dimensions. So for me, what I felt intuitively that they were giving me was a way to heighten our personal power with our own higher self energy. So then also in these pictures, Paula showed this slide, and this is a flag, international peace banner that she says was inspired in the 30s by the galactic presence. And that it's well known in Brazil and Central America. And then Julian said, well, you're going to be interested in my slide because I don't think you've seen it yet. And he was given this by his teacher as another symbol. So again, there's a 3. That's the power of this 3. And as he discusses in here, that energy flow rises to the number 3. And then the energy rising is sort of symbolized by this triangle, and the whole is the circle. So they were having a moment of, wow, that's amazing. He got the same very similar symbol. So then kind of the last thing about the event itself was that we did stargazing one night. The first night that I couldn't find it, they didn't actually do stargazing because it was raining. And the second night, they almost canceled it because of the thunder and lightning. But we just didn't move. We wouldn't leave. So eventually, Cynthia was like, I feel we're supposed to go, because she had seen an image. She saw like red lights. So she had an intuition about what was going to happen. And she thought, nope, tonight's the night. So eventually Paula, who was very concerned about insurance and liability, if she's out in a conference with a bunch of people and we get electrocuted, she'd be liable for a lot of money. And I'm not just saying personally, I'm sure she wanted to keep us all very safe, because that can be very dangerous out there. But we didn't feel like it was dangerous. So we went out to her property, and a picture earlier in the slideshow of the daytime was where we were. We sat in a circle, and they had practiced the CE5 techniques the night I wasn't there, but they were very straightforward. It was, meditation. It was telepathically saying, we're here, we come in peace, we're in North America, we're in Crestone, Colorado, just kind of giving them coordinates basically. And then chanting. And Cynthia did these Om chanting sounds. And then we just sat there. When we first got there, I personally saw an orb, and I've seen them before, so I know how they differ from satellites because they move in a way satellites don't move. So we were sitting inside of a circle, and there were clouds all around the circle, and we were given like a lens to see the stars through. And then I saw an orb that looked like a big star, but then it was moving. And then it would kind of do this, and then it just disappeared. And somebody said, "Oh, it moved into the clouds." And I knew it didn't. And somebody else, two other people saw the same thing I did. It didn't move into the clouds. It just went into a different dimension. So it just kind of blinked out. And then Cynthia wrote this to somebody's question on Facebook, and I thought it was a great discussion. So the mountains are on one side of us, right? We're in a circle, but they're to my right. So I'm not facing the mountains, but there is a ton of thunder and lightning going on in the mountains. And it's like all contained in the mountains. She felt that this was like the Close Encounters movie where they come in the lightning. And she writes, we had the Sangro de Cristo Mountains in the background with a thunder and lightning light show going on above and a peekaboo hint of a large red glowing presence right in the middle of the thunderstorm action. Several people saw that, and several people saw like almost like spotlights, but they were red. We saw no satellites and no airplanes in the sky. And that was Paula's fascination with that night because she goes out there, it's her property. And she said, you always see a ton of satellites and airplanes. And that night we didn't see any. Someone asked me, do you want a laser pointer? And I declined, saying I don't want to shine a laser at them. And then almost instantly, someone about 15 feet away said, they're shining a light at us like a laser. And that was the red laser that they saw. And then someone else saw a UFO moving in a figure 8 shape. And a lot of people saw little distant lights moving that weren't stars. But my favorite part was the light show in the mountains and that giant red glowing ship, seemingly sensitive to not wanting to freak us out. So maintaining a respectful distance and feeling so much love, it was unforgettable. And so what my experience was, I'm not facing the mountains, so I don't see that stuff. I can hear them commenting on it though. But what I experienced was at some point, there was singing and chanting, and then there were about 4 or 5 of the Japanese friends. They started doing this arigato chant. So arigato is thank you in Japanese. And they held hands in this little circle, and they would go to the ground and they would do this, and they were just saying, we love you, arigato, we love you, something like that. Well, first of all, I could feel their energy with so much love. I was like, wow, they're really, like, I had no idea that I would feel that. And then I felt the echo from what Cynthia feels was the ship. Well, that was my experience. Like, I can believe what she said because of my experience. What I felt was like this intense vibration. And what happened to me was my back started to disappear. First, I got this kind of like, almost like I was in an airplane that was dropping altitude really fast. And my hearing in my right side, my right ear started getting really weird, and it was vibrating, and I don't know how to explain it exactly, but maybe like if I were an airplane that just plummeted in elevation, it felt like that. And then my whole back started to disappear. And it was a vibration that was making it disappear. And I felt like what I was hearing was their answer to the "we love you." And then, of course, what was dissolving was just an image, if we tie it to this idea of oneness, consciousness, and this love. So the next day we talked in a circle in the daytime at the same place about everybody's experiences. And that's kind of where this description comes. And then I also got to share that I felt it. And nobody else shared that they felt it. There probably were others that just didn't say anything, but I didn't see the ship, but I felt it. And then I say there were just other personal things happening. This is a picture of my dad. He's 83. I think this was his last time to travel. It was his last time to see his sisters. Um, he looks really spunky in this one. I'm so glad because he wasn't most of the trip. It was very hard for him in a lot of ways. It was hard for them. And the reason I say that is because for decades and decades and decades, going back to Wyoming has been a huge thing. That's his family, and it's kind of close to where he grew up. And his sister Annie, my Aunt Annie, is sort of the one that he has always felt closest to because they share the same memories in a family where there was a lot of age difference between the older and the younger kids. And that came to an end. Thomas came home. I told you about our convergence. Now he wasn't even going to come home. So that got reconnected and he came. And not only did he come home, but he ended up leaving the morning we were supposed to leave. My dad and I were going to fly back. He was going to drive his van back. And he was going to sleep in Salt Lake and get here yesterday. But he ended up driving the entire way and picking us up at the airport, which was like, how did he even do that? That's a really long drive. That's, all across part of Wyoming, all of Utah, and all of Nevada. And he picked us up at the airport. Then we had a bathroom remodel, which Trisha knows all about. So our house is totally reconfigured, becoming reconfigured. So anyway, I just kind of reflect on, for me, starting in May, having a lot of things phenomenon wise happen. Clocks stop working, feeling very sick in my body, very different, like a lot of death energy being burned off, and feeling completely kind of renewed after this trip. Like I feel so much better physically than I did before. And having all these imminent endings also happen. So this is my own subjective experience, but I do feel like right now we're in a time that we may be encountering more endings of things. And endings are part of new beginnings as well. So they go together. And so we can trust if that's happening, we can trust that we're in the right place. And even the people who may be, ending out of our experience are not ending, they are life itself. There was a beautiful slide, and I didn't include it. I didn't take a picture of it. So much of what Julian said was so deep and profound that I was really just soaking it up. And that was the instruction too. Don't try to figure out all this stuff because you can't. But I have his book and I'll be able to deepen in it. But he would get to certain parts of his sharing and he would have to stop because he would be so emotional because this subject is so deep and it's so poignant and it's so it's beyond what words can do justice towards. And so anyway, he showed a picture of the world and a grid and the oneness and I guess me mentioning it now, I can't really tell you exactly why it was so moving. It was so moving for him, he had to stop. And later we asked him more about it, and he kind of had a little more to say. But um, I think that's, another aspect of this that we're all, I know we're all having to go through a lot of healing, and we think of it as just being human and ordinary healing and emotional healing and relationship healing and all of that. But what if that we are part of something so much bigger happening? And that's how it's coming through in our experience, and that's how our mind makes sense of it. But it's way, way beyond that. We're the one waking up, that this oneness is waking up through us. So I think I will leave it at that. And we can take a break and then we can do breakouts. So, it's 9:56. Let's take like a 5-minute break. So we have an hour together, I guess. And then we'll do breakout rooms. I guess I should say, does anybody have any comment or question first? I don't want to cut us off too soon.
Well, I'm just fascinated by all of it. And so now, instead of finding, income producing work, I just want to read all this stuff. But
I
anyway, but I do have to sign off for today. So
Okay.
I want to wish you all a very good week. And Trisha, I will be reaching out to you very shortly.
Excellent. Thanks, Becky.
Yeah, bye, Becky.
Nice to see you, Becky.
Mm.
There's Chris.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a quick break and come back. Your floor is going to be a mess. One thing I forgot to mention was we had someone famous at our little group.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had this one guy who was sharing because after Julian talked about the Japan language and culture and how at home he is there and how it was the first time he learned how to feel was being there.
Mm.
And so then we were just going around, anybody who wanted to chime in. And this guy raised his hand and he starts talking about a profound experience he had playing at uh, the, the Tokyo Dome, singing at the Tokyo Dome, and how the Japanese audience, would get completely quiet during the music, and how he felt that just the very best of his own music would pour through him because they were joined with him and so reverent about, in that now moment with him. And um, so then my thought was Tokyo Dome. I mean, that's like 3 times the size of the Tacoma Dome, right? I know how big that is. So who the heck are you? And turns out he was one of the lead singers for the Doobie Brothers. Yeah, it was Richard Bryant. I don't know. I didn't know him because I wasn't a huge Doobie Brothers guy, but yeah. And then he sang on the night that I couldn't make it. He did an a cappella song and so it's on my Facebook page if anybody wants to hear it. And people are calling something that was over him an orb, and it wasn't. I can tell it wasn't. It was a light shining in the mirror, and the reason is that in the video it doesn't move at all, and it's just a light. So
Mm.
yeah, they I think that's not true. But anyway. Well, let's see. I'm thinking about, do we do 2 and 2, or we can do 2, 3 together and just 2 on 1 and then switch 3 times. But maybe in the interest of time, we'll just do breakouts and I'll participate. So I know you haven't used your Reiki in a while, Chris, but no worries. Whoever you're with will just ask if there's anything you don't remember or you need to get a tip on. So I'm going to let the system figure it out. And you're going to get a thing that you have to accept to go into a break room. So yeah, George.
Thing. Lingo I don't know yet. So what does that mean? Like you just do Reiki together, call someone up, say, hey, you do Reiki for me, I do Reiki for you. Is that what swap means?
Oh, yeah. Well, people actually just get online together or on the phone together. It's just a way to connect with people that you already know in this group when you want to keep going with Reiki and get some more sessions in.
Okay, thanks.
And that's a great question because Chris can know that that's available too. So,
Yeah. I'm not sure I have anything to offer, but I'm happy to participate in whatever way whatever shows up.
yeah, it's just a great way to keep your own personal healing going because when you give a session, you're getting a session. And and plus, it's validating because a lot of us take a class, but we don't practice it, or we don't have um, validation from who we might be sending it to because maybe, it's just not appropriate to really grill them. But in this group, you get a lot of confirmation, right? So you start realizing you got skills, it's coming through, and your information is being validated. So yeah, lots of confidence. Okay, so I'm pressing create. It's going to make a couple groups. Here we are. So I'm going to cancel the recording, pause